It's the bumper edition every Sunday, and I am Emmanuel Akindibo. I'll be your host on the show today. On the program, relief for travelers as federal government opens Second Niger Bridge. Our POS operators are petitioning the President and the National Assembly over the 20,000 Naira withdrawal limit, and it wants this policy by the CBN suspended. And later on the show, Oyetola's former finance commissioner, that's the former Osun State governor's finance commissioner, tells Adeleke Fashola was responsible. That's the previous governor, who is now the Minister of Interior, Mr. Rauf Fashola, is responsible for the 407 billion Naira debt profile of the state. Well, it promises to be another exciting edition of the show, and I'll be hanging out with Adewale Adeoye and Dare Odufowokan. Gentlemen, good evening. Good afternoon, rather. Welcome to the show. Well, of course, it's looking like we're set for the hangout. I hope you're ready as well. Let the hangout start now. Well, let's start from Kaduna State, where it appears that the state is set to join states like Lagos and Kano, who operates the Bus Rapid Transit BRT system to offer fast and affordable transport system to residents of the state. Speaking at the groundbreaking of the BRT system in Kaduna State, the governor, Nasir El-Rufai, said the state will solve the transportation challenges of its people through a three-pronged approach with the introduction of the Bus Rapid Transit, the light rail, as well as partnership with small businesses in the state. Well, according to the governor, this will ease human and vehicular movement around and across the state, which is referred to as a commercial nerve center of northwest Nigeria. Well, gentlemen, Lagos is setting the pace, but we know that states like Kano has also put in place bus rapid system. But I think this is a cherry news for residents of Kaduna. After the train attack, a lot of chaos and concerns about the transportation system in the state. But now it appears that relief is definitely coming, and Governor Nasir El-Rufai is initiating a system that could see his administration transit on a high as far as the people of the state are concerned.
Well, I think this is good news for the people of Kaduna, and not just the people of Kaduna, for northern Nigeria, and I think also for Nigerians, because Kaduna is one of the most historical cities in the north. You know, it became the capital of northern Nigeria in 1917, and it's one of the oldest states in Nigeria, created in 1967, the same year that Lagos State was created. And if you look at the history of Kaduna State, the state has always been a hub for political, cultural, and educational institutions in the north. Amadu Bello and all of them, in fact, if you want to prove an important person, you must have a house in Kaduna. So until recently that the city was jolted by insecurity and all that, it remains, the destination of, everyone in Nigeria, the weather, the hospitality of the people, the heterogeneous nature of the state, of the state and all that. So I think in coping with the dynamics of, economy of that state, and northern Nigeria, I think introducing BRT for a state that its population has gone to around 9 million people, I think it's a very important and significant development. And I hope that it will succeed with this plan, because it's also talking about linking Kaduna City with southern Zaria, through rail. So if it can be coming up with these achievements, in spite of the security challenges, I think it's quite, remarkable.
Dari, let's look at the timing of this laudable project, just as Adeoye has pointed out. Governor El-Rufai will be leaving office in less than maybe 9 months, 6 months rather. By May 29, he will be leaving the office. Is this something that he should be setting in place at this point in time? Or perhaps do you share the pessimism of some people that this is another white elephant project designed to siphon money and settle the boys as the administration is winding down?
Well, Nigerians are very good at being pessimistic. Let's be realistic. That should not come to anybody as a surprise. However, I think we should look at the good side of things more than we look at the downsides. For El Rufai to decide at this time of his administration that he's going to talk about BRT, I think people should applaud that rather than, mark it down. How do I mean? If you look at Kaduna and Lagos, has a lot in common. That's the truth. In population explosion, urban-rural issues. Kaduna State, for example, you find people always leaving the rural areas to come to Kaduna, the capital state, the state capital. You find people from neighboring states, name it, Kano, Katsina, Jigawa, Zamfara, as far as Adamawa in the northeast, as far away as Kwara in the north central. People gravitate towards Kaduna on a daily basis. I lived in Katsina for about 5 to 7 years, so I regularly visited Kaduna. And I can tell you, it is a city that was blossoming then and is still continuing to blossom. And you can understand the kind of transportation issues the city would have. It is not out of place for a governor like El Rufai to have looked at what happens in other states that contributed to solving the transport and traffic problems, and then decide to copy it, no matter the timing. Look at what we have in Lagos. The BRT system we enjoy today is not something a particular governor woke up and just designed. No, it was part of the original developmental plans for Lagos, which were put in place by the government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu when he came in 1999. It's on record that he gathered heads and technocrats and said, we have all these problems. He first asked the team to identify the major problems of Lagos. After that report was given to him, he gathered others and said, how do we solve this problem? How long will it take us to solve the problems? And in the area of traffic congestion and transportation, it was established that we need something like the bus rapid transit that can move freely, devoid of traffic, from one end of Lagos to the other. And that was there. But Ashwadi never started the project. It took a government after him to start. It took another government after that to complete it. And it's taken another government, even after that, to continue. So for El Rufai to decide that I'll start this, it's a plus for him. It's something worth applauding. It is left for the coming administration to continue and get Kaduna to promised land.
All right, let me come to you. Looking at how does the BRT system ease traffic congestion? Dari made, an analogy of Lagos with over 18 million population. I'm not sure how well the BRT system has been able to ease the traffic congestion in Lagos. But a state like Kaduna, which, yes, equally a very well-populated state, but may not be having as much population to deal with on traffic congestion as Lagos does. How do you think this will impact on Kaduna's traffic management at this point in time?
Well, in terms of the area of Kaduna, it's about 46,000 square kilometers. Compared with Lagos, that is less than just 3,000 plus. So when you are talking about population density, Lagos is far higher in terms of population. But if you look at what has happened in Lagos, the transformation that has happened since 1999, I don't know if you remember the era of Moulwe. It started of the called Maulit, destroy it, the most savage form of transportation that we are used to in Lagos. How that was eliminated remains a mystery, because it was not as if they were going on the street, picking them up, and arresting them. But gradually, because of the BRT system, Moulwe phased out naturally, So I think, there have been a kind of significant changes when you're talking about transportation in Lagos, compared with what we used to have in those days. Moulwe was a kind of, remember Fela's song, 100 sitting, 99 standing. That was the kind of transport we had in Lagos. People hanging like bats, But suddenly, the first 4 years of, the AD government at that time, we saw that, gradually it was being phased out. And there were no riots. The AURTW were incorporated. There was constructive engagement with all the stakeholders. And eventually we were able to have this corridor. I remember even Ghana came to study the BRT corridor as a kind of model for Accra and Kumasi. So it's not out of place that other states in Nigeria, are also. So it means that we need to admit that irrespective of the fault lines, there are significant progress that have been made, the transformation of the transport system in Lagos. And I'm not surprised that Kaduna is also trying to copy what Lagos is doing.
Of course, Kaduna State is saying it is using a three-pronged approach, of course, including the bus rapid system. Let's talk about the light rail system. Kaduna State at this point in time is one of the most accessible states by rail system in Nigeria prior to the March 28 attack between the Abuja-Kaduna rail system. Now, if the Kaduna State government is saying it wants to delve into rail system development, don't you think perhaps this is another capital project that may be not necessary at this point a priority for the people of the state when the federal rail system is still yet to be fully maximized?
I think the governor, having studied the situation in his state, understands what he's talking about. From the little I know of Kaduna, Kaduna is a very vast city, extremely large. And then you know that the federal rail system actually passed across a particular track. It is not crisscrossing the city or the state. So now, having the advantage of that from in one end of the city, linking it with another light rail that can move people across from other ends of the city to, easily reducing the pressure on the road is something we should give serious consideration. Let's use the Lagos model again. Lagos is talking about rail. And by the time the government finishes that program, you'll understand. If you want to know what rail will do to removing population of people on the road, come to Oshodi. The rail terminals go from Lupeju end to the Oshodi end in the evening, every day. The train will be loaded full, and you find people sitting on top of the train. These are people living in Lagos, I must tell you. Agbado, Songo, Ijoko. The train will be packed full. The rooftop will be packed full. Every available clinging or hanging place will be occupied. So you can begin to imagine if there is a rail from Yaba that will link Oshodi and proceed. It's going to reduce. And talking about the BRT, it will not be too good if I don't talk about it. How it has been able to reduce traffic. I can give you a personal example. I live in Ikorodu. This morning, coming out of Ikorodu on a Sunday, it's locked up. And I have to be here by 1:30. If I was to drive, I would still be in the traffic. So what did I parked my car, joined the BRT. It has its own corridor. And in precisely 23 minutes, I was at Ketu. And here I am. That tells you that there are people like me who leave their car off the road. That reduces the pressure on the road. And the more effective it becomes, the more advantageous it becomes to the people and to the issue of traffic in Lagos. So, Kaduna, in my own opinion, seems to be studying what is happening in Lagos and trying to catch up. If they are doing BRT at the same time as light rail, they are trying to solve the problem using different types of approaches. And I am sure, knowing what Kaduna looks like, that from whatever end is taking the rail to where it intends to end, the roads on that axis will be less pressured because more people will use the rail.
The rail system.
It's safer and probably more affordable in the long run.
More time saving as well.
And it saves your time. So
well,
and then for haulage, if he is bringing a light rail that comes from areas where farm produces and what have you are being moved, you can imagine that all these heavy duty trucks would be off the road while the rail will serve that purpose. So by and large, it's something that will help more than it will hurt.
we hope we're wishing the Kaduna State government led by Governor Nasir El-Rufai all the best as they come up with this laudable initiative in the transport system of one of Nigeria's significant states. When it comes to Kaduna, I mean, it's like the commercial and defense headquarters of the country and even northern Nigeria. Well, let's move to something more interesting, and now we're talking about culture. And that the traditional ruler of Enugu, Aguleri, Anambra East Council area, Eze Chukwuemeka Eri, has reassured of his commitment towards promoting the Igbo culture and tradition. Eze Eri made this known at his palace at Aguleri when a delegation of women from Nnewi under the umbrella of Umuwanyi Zukora Nnewi paid him a courtesy visit to trace the origin of Igbo. Well, according to the women leader Ifeoma Udogu, the mission of the women is to promote morals, values, and dignity among women, regretting the high rate of divorce in the society. Well, let's bring you a story about that visit as we talk more on the show.
Obugad, the palace of the Ezora, the 34th Eze Akajiovo Igbo, has the trappings of royalty and the ancient world. According to their history, is the origin of the Igbo people. These Nnewi women, like many other people in recent times, are here to seek more knowledge about the Igbo race as they engage the king and his council of chiefs in an interactive session. Then to a lecture by His Majesty Ezora the 34th to educate the women more about the Igbos and their origin.
So, Obia Nubeleba Tata, Mabulonwe, Ezen Nonimie, Nukualuko Mana Chukwe Hugo, Kaibo Jiliketa, Malonwe, Yekotonu, Nibada Ronenu, Namarada Danenu. Makamuna inine, Muna indibu Yoruba, Nibe Shelivi Kabakoniba na Bo Odudua. Wapalo, Iba Gale Babao. India was a Shelivi Kabakotema na Bo Sokoto Kadifet, Useli Kagasa de Reba, Uza deliver. Miban Webana Bakone Kubu, Iban Weze, Ibo Danenu, Mamada Danenu, Ibon Leze, Nibacho Mezere.
Then to the question and answer session where the women freely interrogated the monarch. This flute boy also came with the father to meet with the monarch, who is the custodian of the Igbo culture, and for the women, it is a time to restore the culture of Ndibo, especially in younger women who are fastly influenced by Western civilization.
Makana also na ife we bieba ụmụ ya ma ka esi asụ Igbo ụmụ ya lefuo na ejiri mara ha ma ejiji kwesịrị onye Igbo ya eji ma ụmụ anyị ma anyị bụ ụmụ nwaanyị anyị kwa adị ọzọ dị ka nwanne ya bụ na
Nnewi niile almost 75% of Nnewians kwenyere n'ọdịnala n'omenala. And no nyaka I bụ ụmụ nwaanyị ndị Nnewi niile ji kwekọrịta sị ka ha bịa ka ha nwee ike bata n'obi a ka e bless ha ka ha wee nwee ike chụkwuo ife ha na-achụ jekwu.
We accept them, we welcome them. They did the right thing, and there is something very, very peculiar with their visit. Their visit is linked up to what the Igbos are looking for. And that thing the Igbos are looking for was found at Nnewi, but it has not been cleared who or where and what. But you know, as Igbo spirit is, we lit the fire. We rekindled the Igbo spirit about 2 months ago. And that Igbo spirit has been hovering around, bringing together Igbos, sons and daughters, wherever they are.
The women ended their visit with a trip to these 3 trees, which is said to be close to 3 millennia, as it is believed to have grown in the grave of the second king of this ancient dynasty, who died in 956 BC. Ikenna Amechi, TVC News, Enugu Aguleri, Anambra State.
Well, it's interesting to see how interesting the history of the Igbo nation emanated from. Aguleri, no doubt, represents a very, very strategic place in the history of the Igbo race across the world. But let's look at some of the implication of that story and some talking points from that story, especially the remarks made by the Eze, Chukwuemeka Eri, pointing out that the Igbo nation needs an arrowhead, like a traditional seat that will be looked upon by everybody with respect and could be a rallying point for the entire Igbo nation, especially at this time when there are lots of agitation and divisive sentiments across the Igbo nation. Is this time that this call for a central focus, a seat of power that everybody can look forward to? He made a reference to the caliphate, that the Hausa nation, or northern Nigeria, needs a rallying point. They go to the caliphate and they find a solution to all their issues. Maybe in down south, perhaps Ife and Oyo represents that authority. It's about time that the Igbo nation also rally around and look at that very, very important point made by the Eze, Chukwuemeka of Aguleri.
I think one thing we should realize is that culture is the greatest immunity for the black man against globalization, the negative aspect of globalization. Once we lose our culture and our heritage, our humanity, our being and essence is gone, then we are no human beings. So, and I think in the Southeast, there is a very wrong conception that because there is no central king in the manner of Oyo Empire, Benin Empire, that the people don't have a monarchy system. It's not true. You see, what they are doing now, I think, is trying to revive an acclaimed culture that people have viewed with contempt over the years. Because Anambra is more or less the state of Igbo civilization. And I think scientists have actually proved this to be right, that there was a bronze that was discovered in Anambra, I think Igbo Uku, which dated back to 9th century. Very beautiful bronze that was made by human beings who had lived in that territory. And the early culture says that Eri is the godfather of the Igbo nation, who gave back to Agolo. And then from there you have Aguleri. And every Igbo person, to a large extent, traces the origin to that ancestor. So, and I think it's very important in talking about a people's heritage, not just to think that, we don't even have history. So I think what the traditional law, if you listen to what he was saying in Igbo, which we interpreted into, he's saying that, look, we must retain our culture, that that is the only thing we can use as a rallying point. Because even when there is dissenting views, there is violence and all that, there must be a cultural thing that unites everybody, irrespective of political, cultural affiliations. There must be something that we all respect, that you'll be able to guide us when we are going astray. So I think it's a very good thing that they are trying to revive it. And it's also linked to the Igbo language. Reviving the Igbo language, reviving the Igbo ways of life, reviving the Igbo festival. And I think what we are talking about bringing back our civilization. So I think I'm really happy with what the king is doing. And it should not be a one-off thing. There should be institutional backing. There should be support from state governors to rally around this kind of effort to bring back a culture that seems to be, going away.
All right, Dari, let's look at the roles of traditional rulers in the current political system in Nigeria. Many of them are most likely ceremonial. But of course, it's expected that these traditional rulers will be the custodian of culture and the heritage of the people. For many, it appears like colonization took a whole lot from our history. But at this point in time, is it now time for us to sit down as a people, either we are from the southeast, from the south-south, or even from the north, that we need to incorporate our traditional rulers in the scheme of things for the preservation of our culture and heritage as a people?
Yeah, that's a topic that has been on for a long time. traditional rulers have called that, give us tasks to do in governance. Experts have identified the need to involve traditional rulers in governance. Situations have pointed to the fact that, look, if you have these traditional rulers as part of governance, a lot of problems will be avoided, not even solved, avoided. So it's not something coming new, like I said earlier. However, you must also understand that democracy is fashioned after our books, to put it that way, meaning our laws. Unless our laws are amended to accommodate certain things, including, not limited to, roles for traditional rulers, it will be difficult. It is not something we can wake up and just do. It's okay, we have agreed, let's have it. No. We must tinker with our laws. We must check our books, make amendments, and give them roles to play. It's not just to say you're part of it. They must be actively engaged in being part of governance. And talking about the kind of societies we have in Nigeria, our societies are not the same from one end to the other. So it's going to be easy bringing in traditional rulers from some part, while it will be more difficult in some others, given the systems being operated. It happened when the colonial masters came, when they tried indirect rule, which is using traditional systems to get the people. It worked very well in some places. It worked partially. It worked perfectly in the north, according to history. It was a partial success in the southwest, Yoruba land, where there are kingship systems before and there, but there were limits. Even in Oyo, we had the Oyo that can limit the powers of the king. You don't understand? In some other civilizations in the southwest, there are places where the king does not rule alone. So it was partially successful here. In the southeast, it was a total failure. Why and how? History told us that because of the republican nature of the Igbos. These are people who are, long before you started talking about democracy, they were republicans. They had a system where every man was the head of his own household. So that's something he is not willing or ready to easily relinquish to anybody. So by the time they started bringing, they call them something chiefs, warrant chiefs, the people revolted. This warrant chief, we know him. He's the head of that house or that clan. He cannot be the head of all of us. So nature, system, culture, tradition will also determine how. So when we continue this call for let us have traditional ruler in getting, but we must consider that it is not going to be by fiat. The success will not be general. It will succeed in some places. And so we must first sit down, tinker with our books and laws in a way that we can have a uniform success. Okay, whatever applies here should apply here, or why this will apply here, over there. In the First Republic, there were house of chiefs in some places and they are not in some places because people understood how these things can work. So I believe very strongly that while it is good to talk, the Eze who was talking said something. He said the Igbos have a king, but they have refused to identify with him. That speaks volume. And that is something we must be cautious in delving into, because interpretation, understanding, acceptance of these values and cultures and traditions differs from one end of Igbo land to the other.
Well, let's look at some other talking points from that story. Beyond the history or the roles of traditional rulers, one of the calls made at that event was cultural transmission, where most institutions now refer to our own dialect as vernacular. The woman who led the mission said the Igbo child now does not even know how to speak the Igbo language. Even the women now embrace Western culture to the detriment of African culture. Is it time for us as a people to look ourselves in the face and say, if we do not embrace our own, we're heading for a doomsday?
There's no doubt about that. Because across the world, there are about, according to the UN, working group on indigenous people. There are about 3,000 languages that are facing extinction. And most of them are languages in Africa. And language is the expression of invisible thoughts, not just visible thoughts, physical and cosmological knowledge, epistemology of things you can see and things you cannot see. So when that language is lost, names for plants, names for animals, names for a lot of things, varieties of plants and animals. Once you are losing those things, you are losing the ability to communicate with nature. And that is all over the world. People are fighting towards reviving indigenous language. And I think, we have a lot to do. First of all, we must recognize that each person is, by nature, has his own language given to him by creation. Why is it that, there was an experiment that was carried out at the University of Ife by Professor Fafunwa and some others. They used Yoruba language to teach students from primary school to secondary school and then to university. Mm-hmm. All the students came out in A's to an experiment some years back. I think the Babatunde, former commissioner, was one of those students. They came out in A's. Teaching them in their mother tongue. Yes, in their mother tongue. Mm. So look at what India is doing now. They want to ensure that every person in India, they will use the traditional language to teach them from primary school to university. Look at Japanese. It's their language. They are very good in technology, in science, in art, but they use their language. In China, Mandarin, that's the language that they use. You can see professors of engineering in China. He doesn't know how to speak English. In Russia, the great nations, Norway, Finland, they speak their own traditional language. So why must we throw our language away? We must realize that people that are taught in their natural language, they are more likely to be more knowledgeable than even the English we are talking about. If you start speaking English in UK, US, people have to strain their ears to listen to you. Then you go to primary school, secondary school, they say, oh, flog him, he's speaking vernacular. That's contemptuous of our history. It's a kind of colonial mentality. And I think most of our institutions are abiding into this. When I went to UNN, at UNN, in our first year, when you are studying, you have to pick German or French. We were never taught Igbo language. If I had been taught Igbo language, it would have been more useful to me today. So, a lot of things need to change. Our educational system, the superb, the primary education system, our language must not allow to die. We must not allow our language to die. It was given to us by God, and once we lose that language, we have lost our immunity. We are not going to have any respect anywhere that we go all over the world.
Wow. That was a very good submission there from Ade. But I want to have your thoughts quickly, Dario, as we move on to the other topics. The challenge is now cast before us all. It's either we allow our languages and our culture to die. But let's go back to individual homes, which they say charity begins from. What should parents and custodians should do, realizing that they are also custodian of culture, starting from their homes?
Yeah, well, I think parents know better now. During our time when this vernacular business started, parents at home were forced. Because you cannot imagine your child being flogged every day in school because he speaks Yoruba. So parents at home were forced to encourage their children to speak English so that he can conform when he gets to school. But gradually, we saw the impact of that. Well, of recent, I learned that there has been a reintroduction of history as a subject in school. And then I also learned that there is an effort to encourage the teaching in our schools in local languages, mother tongues as it were. It's just, these are signs that probably we, and when I say we, I mean all of us as a people, government, the governed, citizens, and the rulers, are beginning to realize the fact that we are losing something tangible, which is our language. So if gradually we are coming back, because there is little or nothing the home can do, except the authorities encourage the home to encourage the child to speak mother tongue. Because if I am sure that my child needs English and not mother tongue in school to conform with his mates and his teachers, I would rather help him. In every home, you see this strange happening. And Adekunle, a Yoruba boy, cannot speak Yoruba. Chimezie cannot speak Igbo. And he's very proficient in both English and French. Ayodele can speak German. He has learned a lot of Latin, but he cannot speak Yoruba. That is Yoruba, the general language. Ask a child from Ijebu to speak the local dialect. You'll be shocked. He has never heard it before. When he hears people saying he heard his mother, what foreign language are they speaking? It is such that we have lost so much and gained very little in this cultural exchange that we did for years, because I see it as an exchange. We gave out our own and took their own. And if you see the way foreigners study our languages, you'll be amazed. The way people study and practice our cultures outside the shores of our land, you'll be shocked. If they didn't find something good or beautiful in it, would they be after it? So it's clarion call on all of us. We must not allow our languages and our cultures to die. And we should do the very best we can to sustain their continuity.
Well, absolutely. That's a good way to, of course, drive home the points there from our panelists who have been looking at cultural exchange in Nigeria, looking at the Igbo example, where women from the we paid a courtesy call on the ancestral home of the Igbo nation in Aguleri. Well, let's look forward now and talk about the economy, as Nigeria's economic outlook has been consistently nosediving without control and is leading to a weakened Naira, inflation, high cost of food items, fuel, transportation services, and more others. In the last 10 months, Nigerians have battled to keep up with rising prices of basic needs. This was revealed by the National Bureau of Statistics in its Consumer Price Index CPI report for November 2022. Well, according to the NBS, Nigeria's inflation rate has now risen to its 24.32%. It's a worrisome trend, and it looks like it's going to even get worse in the coming days. Gentlemen, we've talked about culture, we've talked about some infrastructural development, but it's now time for us to talk about something that affects us all. The inflation rate in Nigeria is reaching for the ceilings, and it appears that there is no reprieve in sight. Though the CBN has made concerted efforts, including the introduction of new Naira notes, putting limitation on the withdrawals to at least beat down the pressure, but it appears that there more still needs to be done to combat the rising inflation in our economy.
Well, I think first of all, I must commend the resilience of Nigerians. You know, their strength, their willpower to survive this very difficult moment. It's a mystery to me, because how people live, you know, from morning to night, from Monday to Friday to Sunday, because things are just getting out of hand. The essentials of life, water, electricity, food, clothing, you know, I mean, you just discover that those things are out of reach of men, in fact, majority of Nigerians. People are becoming more dispossessed. They are losing their purchasing power. And we thought that, you know, things will get better. But unfortunately, things are getting worse. Of course, people have argued that when it's December, which is true, there is, you know, demand goes up because of the festive mood. But the fact of the matter is that we have been fighting this problem for several years. This year has been exceptionally terrible. And compounded with the COVID-19 epidemic, I think I just need to commend the resilience of Nigeria. Unfortunately, more people are losing their jobs because they just find it very difficult to cope. You know, a lot of Nigerians are being thrown into the labor market. Their businesses, they are not running their business from homes because you just discover that there's just nothing to live on. So then we are talking about agriculture that should be the means, I mean, a kind of defense mechanism. But you now discover that two things have happened these past years. First is insecurity in our farms. People can no longer go to farms. Then flooding. You know, we had extensive flooding this past 4 months. We may not feel the impact now, but by next year, when people are supposed to be harvesting, that is when we are really going to know that, you know, things have really gone bad. So it's quite unfortunate, and I have not seen an effective response from either state government, local government, or the federal government. the monetary policy that the government is coming up with, I think they are cosmetic approach to resolving an ingrained institutional problem of poverty. You know, because unless Nigeria becomes a country of production where people will produce what we need, at least to a large extent. Probably, I mean, not all what we need, you know, unless we're able to do that. But the same where manufacturing companies are folding up, you know, even small-scale businesses, they are folding up. You know, people producing, look at how much a bag of pure water now. I think it's about 300 Naira. Something that used to be about 80 Naira just yesterday. So what are we talking? Even bitter cola. Bitter cola, you buy 100 Naira. Bitter cola, I used to buy 100 Naira to be about 15 pieces. So just tell me, everything has gone up, even things that are locally produced.
And you're almost bringing back the good old days that was just few years ago.
So you know, unless we go into production, you know, where we shift in a paradigm shift from being a consumer society to a country that produces, I don't think we have, you know, any practical solution to the problem. Well,
Dario, when we talk about the economy, we cannot shy away from government's role in keeping the economy going, especially some of the issues that Aguleri highlighted is that we're not producing enough. Government is not creating the enabling environments to encourage more production of basic needs in the country, lack of security and all that. Are we in for the worst? And what's your appeal to the government at this point? Because it appears like individuals are trying. I mean, Aguleri pointed out that Nigerians, I mean, despite the fact that these things are rising by the day, have still showed resilience. You still see people hosting parties and events every weekend, despite the fact that the Naira is losing its value. But it appears the government is not looking towards the direction of solving this problem.
No, well, the government, in my opinion, appears to be foot-dragging in addressing this very important issue. You see, in the past, when I see MBS or CBN come up with statistics like this, you know, usually you have all these graphs and diagrams. It was something strange to me, difficult to understand. But I tell you, in the last couple of years, I understand these things easily. You ask me how? Because I can easily equate all the drawings to what is happening in the market. The price of rice tells me what that drawing means immediately. The fact that people can no longer eat meat. You see, if you want to understand how bad times are, take time to leave your comfort zone and visit maybe local markets, local schools, and then you'll understand. I tell you that in the last 10 years or so, some things disappeared from our society. Like, you no longer find people who sell bones. You don't find them anymore. People who sell bones. I mean, meat sellers whose own stock in trade is selling bones, pieces of bones.
All right.
They are back now.
Dari,
that's how bad it is.
Let's allow you to take a pause for a moment as we bring on Ada, who is joining us from Plateau State. Good afternoon to you, Ada. Welcome to the program.
Good afternoon, journalist hangout.
Welcome.
I'm calling from just Plateau State.
All right. So let's talk. Which of the topic has captured your interest so far?
The one you're talking about now, that is about the inflation.
All right, share your thoughts with us.
We should move away from being a raw-based economy to a processing-based economy, which will bring about industrialization and in turn create jobs and also enable us to export finished products, which will earn us more foreign exchange. Then the federal government should open the space for building of refineries to avoid monopoly. We're all talking about Dangote. Even if that refinery comes on, we're going to have issues. You know, and then since if our refineries are functioning well, we will stop this idea of importing crude, fuel. And then it will put an end to this fraudulent idea of fuel subsidy. The central bank governor should close the gap between the official exchanges. I don't have to be an economist to know that there's a problem. The gap between that official rate foreign exchange and that of the parallel market is humongous, you know. It's not connection. You can just sit on your house and be playing draft and make a lot of money. So they should do that. Then we should practice fiscal federalism, otherwise known as restructuring. This our feeding bottle economy should stop. This idea of rushing to Abuja to go and share money. Once we are pursuing fiscal federalism, each state will control its resources and then pay tax to the center. And then we will have an economic development plan, which any other government can fall back on. So not this like the Tinubu template in Lagos. All the same, let's not give about this country. It shall be well.
Amen. It shall be well. Thank you so much. Adal, who's calling from Plateau Station, made some very, very interesting points. Ending monopoly, especially in the oil and gas sector, petroleum sector precisely. CBN should be more firm in regulating the exchange rates, both in the official and parallel market, and as well, she spoke about fiscal federalism. But let me allow you wrap up your thoughts on the economy.
She took a lot of issues off me. The truth is that, as I was saying, you'll understand that our people, the real Nigerians, I mean, average Nigerians, are feeling the impact of this inflation directly. People no longer eat well. You find people eating what they see and not what they want. And you begin to ask questions. What happens to our capacity? Yes, we are resilient. But are we giving up the capacity to turn things around? It appears so. Why? How? Government. This support base is weakened. The moment let me cite a very clear example. Rice. A couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, we were making so much noise about local rice production. And all states were competing.
Rice pyramids.
With rice pyramids. Various shapes and sizes of pyramids were seen across the country. Then the borders were closed. Then the borders are open now. It's time for our local rice to compete with these foreign rice that have been giving us a problem in the area of exchange rate. Where are the local rices? Every December for 3 years, Ebonyi rice, Lake rice, Abakaliki rice, Micros rice, Ogun rice. This December, I've been waiting since December 1st. You can't find those things anymore. It shows that we are actually superfluous. We are artificial. We are not real. And until we are serious about competing favorably in the area of import-export, if we continue to import everything, toothpick, there was a party I attended, and the host was proud to tell us that this bottle of water, he brought it in from Taiwan. The bottled water we drank at the party. I was shocked. Is this something to boast about? But this issue of our rice production that suddenly disappeared has shown us where our problem lies. We want to solve our problems in a day. And the moment we are not able to achieve that, we do away with it, and then we accept our
the ugly reality. But let's wrap up with this. Let's quickly talk about inflation. Most times when we talk about it, we limit it to food or consumables. But it goes beyond that. Sure. Purchasing power, the overall price index, exchange rate, and all that. Let's look at some other things that this inflation concerns have brought about in the last 10 years. Let's look at the Naira itself.
Well, I think the Naira keeps going down. You know, it fluctuates. You know, there's a kind of mood swings. You know, it comes up and then there's a kind of hope, but the next 24 hours is down again. So the Naira is what we call abiku, you know, it dies
because inflationary pressure is always taking it down.
And I think there is an assumption that, you know, fiscal policies will automatically readdress a fundamental problem of production, industrial production. It's not going to happen. You know, the Naira will continue to collapse. You know, you may revive it momentarily, but it will go down again. As long as we don't produce what we need, as long as we are import dependent.
The Naira cannot survive a
CPR. Yes. And I think that, you know, when we are talking about reviving the economy, we should tax our institutions, banks, who declare billions of profit every year. They should go into agriculture. That's what other banks do all over the world. They should go into production. Every year, 400 billion, you know, profit after tax. Because the fact of the matter is that when people are not fed well, the nation can never make progress. When you go to Europe, they are very intelligent, they are productive in almost every aspect, engineering. It's because of the quality of food they eat. When you see breakfast in Europe, you see about 15 different types of food for children. There is a correlation between the quality of food you eat and the neurogens, your memory, your health, your intelligence, and your capacity to think. So if we don't feed, we are not exposed to good diet right from our young age, it's going to affect our productivity and the prosperity of our country.
Absolutely. And of course, we hope the federal government and government at all levels will look at how they can ease the inflationary pressure that Nigerians have had to deal with, not just by handing out subsidies or handouts to people, but putting institutional reforms in place that would help the economy of the country revive and perhaps sustain itself. It's still Journalist Hangout on Sunday. We're still having lots of conversations to come, but let's take a break at this time. I'll be back with more after this time out. Stay with us.
In the month of December, on the 1st, it is World AIDS Day. On the 3rd, attention shifts to persons living with disabilities. And December 9th is dedicated to International Anti-Corruption Day. 10th is Human Rights Day, while the 11th is the 2nd anniversary of the abduction of over 300 students in Kankara, Katsina State. On the 12th of December, the World Health Organization dedicates the day as Universal Health Coverage Day. On the 17th of December, the abducted Kankara boys were freed 6 days after. 18th of December is set aside as International Migrants Day. It is the last month of the year. Brace yourself for an interesting December. Stay with TVC News.
Doubt and fear doesn't occur at the canvas, it shows in the canvas. It shows the conation of raw earthen material slabbed, stroked and molded at a pace provided by the doubt and fear. Every move way in the struggle of one to the other, merging the past to the present, brushstrokes of colors seen but not known, for when the wailing stops, the pieces settle down in abject beauty erected for a century of a century, speaking, advocating, protesting as the arts are meant to be.
It's always a great morning on the TVC Breakfast Show.
Thanks for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
With the array of stories that matter and what's behind them.
As you say, the first blow indicates the direction of government.
Tell us what really is going on between your union and the federal government.
Once it's generated, you don't use it, it's waste.
We are not even sure whether we have a strategy for security.
Are you saying that there was nothing wrong in that?
Was he the one driving the taxi?
Answer the question.
Reveal your morning with all you need to know.
Like the
yes, just mundane lyrics.
Yes.
How does that fit into your scheme of events or duties right now?
No chief of staff, no general has the right to call a governor to order. The governor has been elected by his people.
Start your day right, because this is the breakfast show that adds to your breakfast. TVC Breakfast, weekdays at 7 a.m. only on TVC News.
Well, welcome back to Journalist Hangout on Sunday. I'm Emmanuel Akindibu. I've got gentlemen who are on the panel this afternoon looking at topical issues from social and economic as well as cultural point of view on the show today. Well, let's talk about something that is really important to Nigeria's economic survival as the federal government continues to search for a lasting solution to the bleeding in the oil sector. The Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative has disclosed that in the period spanning between 2009 and 2020, Nigeria lost as much as 619.7 million barrels of crude oil, which is valued at 16.25 trillion naira. And this is lost to oil theft. The organization lamented that it was regrettable that at a time Nigeria's economy is largely dependent on oil revenues, some Nigerians would choose to collude with foreign nationals to steal and sabotage the main sources of revenue to the country. It is sad, but it's the reality. And we must commend the federal government for the efforts made in recent months to pick out these oil thefts. But we have, of course, many Nigerians will say they haven't seen the impact on the street yet because they're still buying petroleum products at a relatively high price. But let's look at the old narrative itself. I mean, there's a saying that it is he who knows the way in, or like, I mean, there's a saying in Yoruba language, I don't know how to say it now, that it's the thief who knows how to catch a fellow thief.
Yes.
No accusation is being pointed here, but this looks like an inside job. It's how it's done to actually do this.
Well, I think in the first place we should, this is one of the legacies of former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who in 2007 signed the 90 Act. And I think Nigeria is one of the first countries that came into the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative. And the first chairman actually did a very good job, Obieze Ekwesili, in terms of putting down the structure. Because we have had in the past where government institutions will not give you the real picture of what is going on. But 19 has offered us a very good opportunity to know. This is not coming from Femi Falana. It's not coming from Oleza Agbakoba. It's coming from government, institution that is owned by the government itself. So now look at the number, the figure of funds being stolen. These funds could not have been stolen by ordinary people on the street. It's a well-organized cartel where you have people in the security services, you have politicians, you have top civil servants. If you want to get oil, it's not a crime for small boys. Look at what we have just discovered, that they laid pipes, kilometers, from offshore to onshore. That will have taken months to lay. And what they do is that they bring the ship let's say at midnight. Either they stay offshore, onshore, and then look for small batches who take this fuel down, or even fuel, the liquid from their source to the. So it's a global cartel that when we are talking about this kind of crime, it's not something that ordinary people are involved. Before you can pass through the various checkpoints on the IC, there's no way you can even pass through without meeting the Navy, the Air Force, Director of Military Intelligence, the police. So it's a crime that is, it's for big men. So this is self-indictment of the government. And of course, this has been going on according to 90 for several years. In 2016, we thought things would be better. It's even worse. And it's still going on as we speak today. So if you look at these budgets, it's almost, the budget of Nigeria for 1 year at a point in time. More than the budget of some 10 states put together. So when we are saying that Nigeria is not rich, we are not saying the truth. Nigeria is a highly endowed country. It's a very rich country whose growth has been stunted by criminal elements who are driven by primitive accumulation of wealth. So now we have seen this report. The question is, what will the government do? Let us wait and see.
Well, this revelation by 90 has economic impact and even environmental implications on Nigeria's economy. But let's still stay on the economic implication of this. 619.7 million barrels of crude oil valued at 16.25 trillion naira is a huge loss for any country. And if Nigerian government has not found anyone culpable of this crime, it means the government itself is not bothered about this.
The truth of the matter is, when this war against vandalism, oil pipeline viaduct, and all that gathered momentum, some of us did say that that's actually not the solution to Nigeria's problem in that sector. How many buyers of crude oil are taken away by vandals who break pipes? And you compare it to those who just lay pipes from our source to their ship. You would understand the fact that we need to do more. And the more is not physical. It's actually in the area of policies. Sincere policies. We need to tell ourselves the truth that, okay, in government or in government agencies, these are the people who can know something about this thing. They can't exist in isolation. You can imagine a white man, an European, or a Swede or whatever, leaving his country to come and engage in oil theft here. That tells you how much he intends to make from it. It's Ekpo said, it's not a business or it's not a crime for children. It's for the big boys. And he won't venture into such without being sure of certain complicity in the system. And that's what we are asking for. Those who are complicit in the system should be fished out. Once we do, it's like NDLA running after boys smoking Indian hemp on the street. That was the order of the day in those years. And we kept saying, this will not solve the problem of hemp smoking. Yeah. But when Marwa came and started going after the big men, growing it, processing it, selling it, and we started seeing changes. Yeah. It's going to the very roots. The same thing happens here. We have employed one repentant militant to run after vandals. That would solve our problem. The organs in the system who are complicit, who are part and parcel of this, who sees this as business. And you know what? This crime is handed over from one retiring organ to the other. They know where the pipes are. They know the time the ships will come. They know how the crudes are disposed of. Some of these crude are even sold back to agencies in Nigeria. And they get their money. Let's look for those men and women who are within our system, who knows what is going on. If we have to bargain with them, let us do, okay, we want this to stop. Give us all the lowdowns. Where is this? Where can we this? How can we end this? It is only when we do that. Those in government, those in the agencies, those who are retired, those in the military, those in the processing sector, this processing sector.
Absolutely.
Let us gather all what they know. It is all what they know and all what they've been doing we need
help us to tackle
this problem.
Well, that is all sabotage is an issue, like the report stated, that spanned for a very long period of time. But of course, I think in recent time we begin to hear more and perhaps see some success stories because perhaps the NNPC is not a private organization.
Yes.
They realize
they want
to
make profit
money. Perhaps the privatization of the NNPC is also in I mean, reducing the loss and the theft that oil sabotage has done to Nigeria's economy over the years. Well, let's talk about something that is exciting and cheering, especially at this time for travelers and motorists who are going to the southeast. They've expressed some relief about the temporary opening of the Second Niger Bridge. While President Muhammadu Buhari, who opened the bridge for use during the festive season, counseled road users to drive safely and responsibly. The president was represented at the opening by the Minister of Works, Babatunde Fashola, said the purpose of the bridge was to save lives and alleviate poverty occasioned by the waste of man-hours resulting from gridlock on the old first bridge. Well, let's share the story of the opening of the bridge to you at this time.
As it is usual, the heavy traffic experienced by motorists on the Old Niger Bridge is building as we approach the peak of the festive period. Now, travelers going to the eastern part of the country through Onitsha will soon heave a sigh of relief as the Minister of Works inspects the 1.6-kilometer Second Niger Bridge. He is briefed on the progress of work done by the Federal Controller of Works, who conveys the good news of its opening.
From 15th of December, we go open this road for traffic, for people who want travel for Christmas. They go pass here and use the road. But what we do be say, now only small vehicles, now they pass here. We don't want big trailer, we don't want big lorry or tipper. The reason they say the road na service road and they get plenty bend and the bend the radius is very sharp well and we don't want big trailer to come to fall here. That's why we not go allow them use this place. And this opening now for 1 month, starting from 15th of December to 15th of January. So between 15th of December to 1st of January, the traffic, the direction will be say people with the travel go east. They will be enter from here. go from Obos, where we don't construct interchange. From there, they go places like Aguleri, go Abia State, go Akwa Ibom, go Cross River, go Port Harcourt. Then people will want go places like Enugu, one go Onitsha, one go Oka, they will pass the old bridge. Then all the big vehicles, they go pass the old bridge. But it don't mean say people will want to see the bridge, come see say, this bridge where they don't talk, even minister don't come here, say, now true, they fit come here, make they try, see for themselves, what the government don't do, and they go appreciate, say, this government, they work well, well.
As you can see, we're standing on the bridge. There's still a few things to be done, lane marking and all of that, but the bridge is finished. And those of you who drove on it, I'm sure you will help us communicate that. But there's work to be done, to be finished at the interchange on the opposite side, and also on the Asaba side. But it's not a bridge to grandstand. It's a bridge about human beings, about lives. And so we thought, if it is motorable, let us open it for the period it was meant and conceived for, and beyond that period, so that people can begin to feel that relief. This is a temporary opening to achieve the purpose of relieving that pain and that inconvenience. And we would like your feedback if you get the opportunity to use it, so that we know how best to make it better for you, because it's all about service for us.
Then came Thursday, the 15th of December. The bridge is still closed to traffic despite the promise of a midnight opening. Commuters, motorists, and even journalists waited at the Asaba end of the bridge till about few minutes before 10 a.m. when the first set of vehicles were given access to the 1.6-kilometer bridge. Sunday, traveling to Owerri, is the first person to drive through the Second Niger Bridge.
I feel so happy, at least to reduce the hold-up. We've stayed over 1 hour at the other bridge, over 1 hour.
For me, it's a thing of joy, you know. Today it's a reality, though it's not 100% completed. So far, what we're seeing is impressive, and we commend the present administration, and we hope they complete it before, as you know, based on the time frame they have given.
This opening is a temporary measure to ease traffic on the old Niger Bridge, as some restrictions are already in place at the bypass road used for accessing the new bridge, which now allows eastern-bound travelers to go through to cities in Imo, Rivers, Abia, Akwa Ibom, and Cross River states.
As you can see now, we are enjoying the road, but we are begging Buhari to complete the second one, the third one. Yeah, I hear that this is first one, second one, so we have let them complete the third one and the fourth one. That's what we are begging. There is too much queue in their side, but when I reach Tipa Joshua, they told me to divert and take the new bridge. So it's okay. It's okay.
Well, it has been horrible there. There's a lot of, the hold-up is very tight.
The Second Niger Bridge and its link roads, which was started in 2018, stretched to about 46.9 kilometers, connecting Asaba to Onitsha. And when fully completed, we eliminate gridlock at the old Niger Bridge. Ikenna Amechi, TVC News, Asaba.
Well, an historic moment there, a big relief for transporters on the southeastern axis, especially those accessing the southern states of Anambra, Enugu, Owerri, and beyond. But gentlemen, first and foremost, let's extend our commendation to the current government of President Muhammadu Buhari. We deem it fit to ensure that commuters during this festive period enjoy a new lease of life, easing the traffic situation around that bridge. But let's talk about the infrastructure itself. How much of an importance is this bridge to economic, social, and perhaps business activities in the region?
I think this is a very significant achievement on the part of the current regime, and happening in the southeast. which is also a stronghold of opposition. So I think it's highly commendable. And if you understand the buck passing that has been going on for years over the construction of that bridge, I think it's a very significant thing that the government has finally, constructed the bridge. Because I remember in 2012, former President Jonathan, in a town hall meeting in Anambra State, said that if he did not complete the bridge by 2015, he would go into exile. And he left in 2015, no achievement had been made, except that they paid about 325 million for design and all sort of things, And this problem has been there for years. The first Niger Bridge was built in 1965 by Dumas. And it's that time there has been that discussion about an alternative bridge. Because at that time it was conceived to be a trans-African highway from eastern Nigeria through Lagos to Mombasa in Kenya. That was their plan. And when it was commissioned in December 1965 by Tafawa Balewa, in fact, that was the last functional commission before it was killed, in January the following month. The idea was that, look, this is a trans-African highway that will lead the entire, West African sub-region, even to East Africa. But since 1965, nothing has been done. Various government, Babangida came, because this one has been overused over years. From this area, you go to northern part of the country. From here, you go to Enugu. Through Ninth Mile, you go to Nsukka. From there to Benue, Makurdi. Then on the right, you go to Umuahia, to Aba, Port Harcourt. So it's even to Cameroon. So it's a major artery when you are talking about transportation between, within Nigeria. So for this government to have completed, I think within 3 years, I think it's a major achievement, either in the history of Nigeria, in the history of West Africa, and in whatever way you look at it. I think the government needs to be commended. They are talking of a third one, but I think we have a second one now. So I think it's a huge bonus for this government. And we also hope that we are going to sustain the cultural maintenance so that it's not just to build the bridge, but we continue to. So I say kudos to Fashola. At least this will go down in history.
His ministry, of course,
yes,
ensure that this is delivered
for him. So,
but let's look at, I'm talking about ensuring that this facility is well put to good use and protected and well maintained. The ministry there, the minister there in his remarks said it won't be allowed, trucks will not be allowed to ply the bridge. And at this point in time, it's just a temporary opening to get feedback from road users. Do you think perhaps this would motivate road users, especially at this time of the year, to perhaps give us their own opinion about infrastructural development across the Southeast, especially as regards this bridge? And we hope that the federal government or the federal ministry will be receptive to hearing the observations made about this?
No, it's a time to talk. It's actually a time to talk. Something has been done. Something that has been expected for decades has finally been done. And you see, this is one area that I've always appreciated the current administration, infrastructural development. From the little I've been able to gather, the Buhari administration has done tremendously well in the area of infrastructure across the country. The records are there, the projects are there. The government, the administration has been bogged down by the problem of insecurity and the economy. Yes, we have been disappointed that the general we brought in to tackle insecurity has not been able to deliver. Yes, but when we begin to talk about road and other infrastructures, bridges, railways, housing, this administration has really done well. If previous administrations have done half of what they have done, we won't be in this state infrastructurally. So having said that, the Second Niger Bridge is of immense importance to both sides of the River Niger and beyond. So to say whether people will talk now, yes, this is the time to talk. People are going to be talking about how beneficial it is. And people are going to be talking about what needs to be done to ensure that the
we could hear someone already asking for the third bridge.
The third bridge. So people are, for example, the minister himself did say that there are some works to be done around the
lane marking
exchange
and
rates
all that.
The lane marking, fine. To ensure that people put it to the proper use.
And of course, he also warned that there are a lot of sharp turnings.
Yeah.
And that's why they are not allowing trucks
to pass
to use the bridge. So that, I mean, during the swerves and the turnings,
there will not be collisions.
And it will be nice
so
for...
I think it is strategic for the federal government and the ruling party to have decided that this Yuletide season, people must use this bridge. You can see the smiles on the face of the people.
Let's look at the socio-political impact of this, especially as we approach the general election. During President Muhammadu Buhari's initial years in office, there were accusations that he's been kind of favorable towards a particular region of the country and not and ignoring a certain region. This, like you mentioned in your previous remark, is a milestone achieved in a region that is perceived to be in the opposition. Even though in the last few years we've seen more presence of the ruling party in parts of the region. Do you think this perhaps would spur more support for the ruling party as it will be going back to canvass for votes for its candidates across all positions in the general elections?
You know, there is a group in Onitsha. You know, Onitsha market, amalgamated traders are, you know, one of the biggest markets in West Africa. I think if anybody has any shop there, this is, in fact, they should give an award to Buhari for this kind of, because that thing is going to be, that market is a market that people go 2 a.m., 3 a.m., transport from all over West Africa, even from Cote d'Ivoire. People travel long buses to that market. With this bridge now, it's a very strategic, you know, asset to them. So, you know, politics, there are people who don't have conscience, but there are also people who have conscience. You know, for anybody who has conscience, deep down in your bedroom, I will say, no, this is a very good achievement. But there are some people that they've made up their mind. If Buhari goes there now to build the biggest spot, you know, they don't want to listen to, they have just made up their mind. But I think people, a lot of people have conscience. They will think and say, look, no, this is quite, you know, impressive. No matter the way you look at it, I think no government has done this since 1965. No government has done it. Successive governments, state governments, nobody has touched it. And don't forget that in 1965, 1970, that bridge was destroyed. Because the Biafrans saw the advancing Nigerian soldiers. They felt, you know, they didn't want them to come into Biafra land. So that place was destroyed. So no major, you know, effort has been done, has been made. So for somebody to come and build the bridge, no matter the kind of hatred you have for that person, you should go down your memory lane. Your conscience will steer you up. That look, this man has done something very great for that.
And let's drive this home now and talk about the Buhari administration and its legacy. I mean, the president yesterday clocked 80 years. He's already winding out his time in office. But which of these projects would you say Buhari would owe dearly as perhaps the most important legacy of his government? You've mentioned some laudable infrastructural development that has been witnessed under his administration, rail line projects, bridges, as well as the Lagos-Ibadan Express Road as well. Call from Uche from Anambra. And it's a good thing that we're even having someone calling from that region to perhaps give us some exciting updates. Uche, welcome to the program.
Yeah, good afternoon, my brother. Good afternoon, the panel.
Welcome to Journalist Hangout on Sunday. So, Uche, let me ask you quickly, have you applied that new Second Niger Bridge?
Actually, it's a welcome development. Like, you know, my brother said earlier on about the Aerofy project. He said government is continuous. Yeah, but personally, I want to say that actually it is not this government that started it, no matter how they started it. But when you start a project, somebody has to continue the project. So we commend this government for continuing the project, even though the project has not been completed as we speak. But it's a welcome development, and we commend this government for that. Even though that, you know, we've been hearing all manner of stories. Okay, look, you can imagine the Abada loot. They said they have diverted the money to the Second Niger Bridge.
Okay. Uche, Well, it's a good thing that you acknowledge the fact that the government of the day should be commended for at least continuing the project initiated by the previous administration. But Darren, let's quickly wrap up with you. What would be some of the legacies that Buhari's government would be remembered for across part of the country? And I'm asking you this as a Nigerian, first and foremost. What are the legacies that you think this current administration would leave us with that is quite commendable?
Yeah, well, one of them is what we're discussing today, the Second Niger Bridge. And I am very sure, knowing who Buhari is, that this project will be one of those projects it will hold there to his head. Delivering this purposeful project to a region where he is seen as unpopular, where he is seen as unacceptable, is something that would make any man proud. If I were Buhari, I would sit down, look at video clips like this, and I'll smile. Irrespective of, recall the noise over his statement that you cannot expect me to give the same thing to people who gave me 15 votes and people who gave me 100 votes. I'm paraphrasing. We all saw the hoopla that followed that statement. But he had given more. He had given more than he had even given some regions. The Second Niger Bridge is significant to the level of the Southeast. That's the truth. Because
and not even the Southeast alone, even the South-South.
South-South, Southeast, North Central. It has opened up that axis so that what they are known for, the various businesses and activities therein, other people from all over West Africa can conveniently participate. They're talking about other projects that will remember. You can take the train, the rail, the bringing back of rail is something Nigerians would, in future, come to appreciate Buhari for. Don't forget, a lot of states are talking about light trains now. It's because railway was reintroduced by the Buhari administration. And that is the reason why other states, most of them will be linking what they are doing with what exists. So it's something, look beyond that, the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, by the time it is fully completed, we'll understand the importance. Go to the north and see some roads linking two states that either two had no business together. So, like I said before, in the area of infrastructure, we may not admit it now. It is natural for us to despise whatever Buhari has done because we feel he has failed in some areas. But in years to come, when we begin to see the real effect of his infrastructural revolution, we'll appreciate him more. Of course, we've said it before. In the area of his insecurity and other things, we expect more. If he can still do
it's similar to the same remarks that former President Goodluck Jonathan said when he was voted out of office. You would remember me more, or you would appreciate me more when I'm out of here. Yeah. Perhaps we should begin to appreciate President Buhari for his successes now, even though, of course, we know
that may not be in our culture or in our practice. That's what I'm saying. When he leaves, and we begin to see, especially if we get a government that will build on his achievements. When Ashwadi Bola Tinubu made the statement that he's going to build on Buhari's achievement, some people started talking about, is he going to build on insecurity? Is he going to build? No, he's talking about building on the good areas. And this is one of it. If he delivers the third Niger Bridge and finishes all the things that need to be done at the second Niger Bridge, you don't know what that will do to that hub, that area. And then he goes ahead across the Lagos and give us the fourth mainland bridge.
Fourth mainland bridge, absolutely.
Fourth mainland bridge. So those are areas we'll appreciate Buhari when he leaves.
Well, let's hope Nigerians know better and shun all kind of politics and nepotism that would draw us back from our success story as a people. Like the panelists have said, we need to focus on the areas where we are making progress, intensify effort as much as we are also trying to address the issues that bothers us as well. And talking about making progress, let's talk about the economy. As Nigerians continue to battle the new cash withdrawal limit set by the Central Bank of Nigeria, a group under the aegis of the point-of-sale POS operators in Nigeria have unanimously kicked against a cashless policy. The POS operators, in a petition written under the aegis of Association of Mobile Money and Bank Agents in Nigeria to President Muhammadu Buhari and the National Assembly, called for the suspension of the policy to save 1.4 million bank agents from losing their means of livelihood. Interesting there. But let's look at the issues, gentlemen. We saw reports of that. The petitioners go to the National Assembly requesting for suspension or a cancellation of that policy. But let me bring you, Adewale Adeoye. Let's start with what exactly are the contentious issues about the CBN new monetary policy by the CBN?
There is no policy that is totally bad, and there's no policy that is extremely good without any, bad aspect. And of course, it's also a question of interest. If there is a policy, I want to look at how it affects me as a person or how it affects my own group. I think the philosophy behind the idea of, bringing a cashless society is that you want to track funds, movement of funds, especially illicit funds. Then you also want to ensure that there's a kind of fiscal discipline, in the system, so that you know how much, people are withdrawing, what is going from one place to the other. And I think it's part of the responsibility of the CBN to ensure, issue legal tender, and also ensure fiscal discipline in the economy. However, this policy, I've tried to look at the global standard. I discovered that there's really no cashless society in the strict sense of it. There is no country where people don't still use cash. What we are talking about is, countries that are near cashless society. And of course, you have to take into consideration the cultural milieu in every society. The infrastructure. For instance, sometimes you want to transfer money for a whole day from one bank to the other, no network. You go to ATM, you are in a desperate situation, you want to withdraw 20,000 naira, you see a long queue, you can't get your money. It's your own money. You get to the hospital and you want to pay in a rural area. In a case of emergency, let's say somebody is ill, okay, you must deposit money, 50,000 naira for operation. Then the hospital has no POS. Or there's a POS, you want to use the system, it's not working, and somebody is dying. So I look at the US, you can withdraw between $300 to $1,000 a day. In UK, you can withdraw £300 to £1,000 a day. In Finland, Switzerland, Netherlands, which are the three countries that has, you can also say almost a perfect cashless society, you can still withdraw up to $300 per day. So this idea of saying 20,000 naira per day, 100,000 naira per week, I think if you are not careful, you are going to create a cash-strapped society in your struggle to create a cashless society. Because there are about only 134 million Nigerians that have bank accounts. For instance, the CBN governor, let's say he goes to his home state in Delta, and there are about 20 widows that come to visit him. Some of them are 75 years old, 80 years old, 60 years old. You want to give them 20,000, I'll be saying, give me your account, give me your account. You don't know it's even an insult. That's the cultural aspect. That's the cultural aspect. So, in a situation where rural areas, over 70% of Nigerians operate cash in rural areas, they don't have access to internet. How did you want those such people to cope? What they are trying to do is that, they want people to put their money into the system. But before you put your money into the banks, there must be some level of trust. Not a situation where when you keep money in the bank, they take transfer, they take money. Even alert, they take money. Bank maintenance, they take money. ATM withdrawal, then you want to keep your money in fixed deposit account. When you use USSD, you still get charged for the sessions. You pay. Then you want to keep your money in fixed deposit account. How much is the interest? You want to buy treasury bills. So you will not be encouraged to keep your money. So if you are not careful, after some 6 months' time, people will go back and start withdrawing 20,000, and keep the money at home again. Because there's no trust in the financial system. So if you really want people to put their money in the bank, because they want banks to have more money. If you want people to put their money in bank, people must have trust in that system. Before, treasury bills used about 20% 1 year. Yes, treasury bill about 20%. So I'm encouraged to put down my money. Then what is the CBN doing about idle funds? In UK, if you keep about 2 billion, they will call you after 6 months. Why are you keeping this money here? Go and invest the money. But here, people, the idle funds, they are there. Nobody is talking about just talking in the banks.
But it's helping the banks with their balance sheets.
Yeah. And let me tell you, if a governor or senator needs 2 million naira cash, the bank manager knows how to get it.
So it's
this policy
more targeted at the common.
I'm telling you, it's going to affect the common man more.
We'll get into the issues that is raised by the Association of Mobile Money and Bank Agents. But Dari, let's look at the issues. First and foremost, looking at the policies, the highlights of that policies by the CBN: 100,000 naira limit per week for individual accounts, 500,000 naira limit for corporate accounts, POS transactions are limited to 20,000 naira a day, and the ATMs will be limited to just lesser notes. 200 naira will be the maximum note. So no 1,000 naira, no 500 naira on the ATM machines and all that. But of course, we've looked at the issues that could fight against this system: service downtime, the lack of financial literacy. Is the CBN, we all understand the fact that the CBN is trying in its own capacity to ensure that the economic issues, they try to bring it under control. But is the CBN doing too much or doing something that would inevitably hurt the economy on the long run?
Well, for me, the CBN is doing great, doing well. It's trying to curb a serious problem. But I would say that the CBN should be people oriented. We should be conscious of the people in its approaches. Beyond the POS operators who have gone to National Assembly, I may also want to inform that governors across the country have rejected the policy too. And they have decided that they're going to have to meet Mr. President to discuss this, because in their opinion, it is going to hurt the people. So we have two extremes. The POS operators, Association of Money, Mobile Money, whatever, to me represents the very grassroots. The governors represent the very top. So if this policy has been rejected at both ends, you should tell Mr. CBN governor. I still read him yesterday saying Mr. President said it should carry on. Yes, Mr. President can tell you to carry on because you have been able to convince him about the perfectness of the policy. But the people who bear the brunt are saying, we are scared, we are afraid. This is what it will do. Like Egbo said, the implication, when people start shouting, I say it's not a problem. The man himself will come back after a year or 6 months to review it. Knowing who Nigerians are, they won't make noise. Every day they will go to the bank for the next 6 months, 20,000 naira. They will finish withdrawing their money. And all the money you think you want to get will now be in the houses, with implications, of course. Now, you see, what I think we should do as a nation is learn to crawl before we start running. You can't just wake up one morning and you hit the streets running. People will ask if you are okay. The introduction of mobile money banking, or what do you call these POS people, is doing a lot of help to our system already. The banks are less crowded. But we've come with a policy that will now ground this process. Apart from the banks being less grounded, money is easily available to those who need it in the ruralities. Aside
that's
that,
financial inclusion.
Aside that, my brother, employment for idle hands. I know people, I know somebody, he works in a bank here in Lagos. He worked in a bank here in Lagos. And he was retrenched. 2 years he was at home. But today, he's an employer of labor. He has employed not less than about 20 POS operators. And he has relocated to our hometown, Deremo. That's where he operates from. He has the whole of Ode, Ishara, Ikperu. He has networks of these operators working for him, taking banking to the people. And I want to tell you, there is no commercial bank in Oderemo, in Ikpara, in Ishara, in Orileoko, in Akaka. I can list 9 communities, 9 towns, not communities, big towns. 3 of them hosting local government headquarters without a single bank. The closest bank is at Ikperu, Wema Bank, at Baba Jebu Junction there. If you have to come from Ikpara, Orileoko, Ishara, Oderemo, Iraye, Ekposho, to come to Ikperu to bank, barring traffic, That's about 40 minutes drive. But he has taken banking to them, he has employed people, and he has his own life back on track. As a result of a policy by the central bank that helped provided solution to a lot of problems. Now, the same central bank is coming with another policy that will ground the POS operations. And the implication is take banking away from the people again, crowd the banks.
Because if you want to do more than 20,000 naira,
you have to go to the bank. You crowd the bank, you take banking away from the people, you throw people out of jobs.
Because their profit margin will be greatly affected.
And then a lot of them will see it's no longer worth it and they walk away and back into crime. Then we are going to increase crime rates. How? More monies will be. If I have 1 million today, I can take it to the bank immediately.
Because you can have access to it anytime.
Anytime. But if I have 1 million today and I'm scared that in 4 days' time I'll be needing 700,000, I won't take the money to the bank. So there are implications. While the idea of mopping up fund will help our Naira, especially this idea of low denominations being, I'm so much in love with it. Because I can, sometimes you go to the ATM and all it brings out is 1,000 and somebody is standing beside you begging you and you don't have change. You have to part with 1,000 naira. But if I know that when I go to the ATM, it is 200, in fact, by the time I pack 20 to 200s for you, it will be appreciated. So we must, in a way, ensure that we don't bring in policies that will destroy the gains of previous policies. I believe that the CBN governor and his team still needs to, and that's why I'm happy that it is not, you see, unlike past issues, it is not only the poor that are crying. It is not only the rich that are complaining. It is all of us are scared that this may not give us what we want.
All right, Dari, let's wrap up with this as we hit the home stretch of the show. What amendment would you want to the reforms? We've highlighted the big points there. We've highlighted where we do not agree with the CBN governor. But what amendments would you want to see to the reforms? We all agree that perhaps the reforms are needed to help the Naira gain some strength. But what are the other reforms that you want to be put in place? Okay, this one shouldn't go, but we can actually work with this.
The cosmetic approach to, if a house is defective and it is the foundation, if you keep on buying new curtains and repainting the house, it's not going to resolve the problem. The financial system, we need to address its foundation. The banks that are declaring profit all the time, they must be compelled to invest in production. They must be compelled to invest in agriculture. The CBN must give initiative support to small-scale industries so that we can increase our capacity to produce most of the things that we consume. That's not being done. Then again, the CBN needs to ensure that collaborators, people that steal public funds, no government official can steal public funds without collaboration of bankers. We say withdrawal should be 500,000 naira per day. Are people still not stealing billions? Do they steal it by cash? They do also through transfer. Some are keeping their public funds in safe havens, you know, in islands all over the world. So the corrupt elements, you know, in the financial sector, the CBN must do something about them. You see a lot of people that they hack their accounts. The banks are not punished. Nothing happens to them. You know, a lot of people are complaining. They hack their account. They take their money. You go and complain. Nothing happens. So the CBN must sanitize the banking system so that people will have confidence to put their money and be sure that that funds will be kept in stock for them.
Absolutely. And I think that's a good way to leave it. Dari, you want to add one or two things?
I perfectly agree with everything you said. And the truth, so the only thing to add is that the CBN must know that beyond saving the Naira and preventing corruption, we also need to save the lives of Nigerians, save their jobs, save their futures, and save their investment. Because if I am a small-scale investor and I need an average of 100,000 naira cash every day to keep my business running, if you limit it to 20,000 naira, you are ruining my business.
Absolutely.
So, and that should come into consideration.
And how do you pay for somebody bringing raw materials? When you say, well, let's hit the home stretch on the show today and talk some politics. And this is From Osun State, where playing the ostrich is a clever way of shifting and not accepting responsibility no matter the issues involved. This seems to be the style of the politicking adopted by politicians in Nigeria. A former commissioner for finance under the administration of the immediate past governor of Osun State, Bola Oyebamiji, has released figures showing that the government of Gbega Oyetola's predecessor, that's Engineer Rauf Aregbesola, was responsible for the 407 billion naira debt of the state. Oyebamiji exonerated the government of his former boss, Gbega Oyetola, of procuring any debt for the state. He further faulted the statement on Thursday by the incumbent governor, Senator Ademola Adeleke, who described it as a vindictive campaign of calumny, stating that the Oyetola administration accrued a lot of debt for the state. Well, a lot of, banters here and there, and but I really want to commend the royal fathers of Osun State, starting from the Oni and the Oluwo, who have cleverly urged the new governor, focus on governance and leave the politicking for now. You're now in the seat. Look at how you can handle the situation and make the lives of your people better. But let's come to the issues. Are these issues of mudslinging, debt, loans, are this something that should be a recurrent feature in our politics? And why is this like a form of blackmail, or there are issues to be really addressed in all of this?
Well, I think both. It's both a measure of political blackmail, and also we cannot run away from the fact that there are fundamental issues being raised by both sides. But one thing is lacking, and that is institutional structure for political transition. I don't know whether it's Security that has just made that law. If a government wants to transit from one government to the other, there should be institutional structures so that we save ourselves from all this kind of, figures, backstabbing and all that. And we are talking of a situation where the transition committee, we have people from Oyetola, is commissioner of finance. Then the incoming government will bring some experts who are financial experts. Then the accountant general of the state will be there. Maybe about a month before the handover, they will sit down, look at all the figures,
the books,
and come out with a document that is agreeable to all the parties. That didn't happen. That didn't happen in this case. There was no transition committee that the other parties were all involved. So we are now listening to contradictory figures. 408 billion. Aregbesola is saying that he has settled most of the debts, that what is outstanding are funds for long-term infrastructure. And of course, the Commissioner for Finance of Oyetola said Aregbesola should be blamed. But I think that's a self-defeatist statement. Because if you are blaming Aregbesola, your governor was his chief of staff. He was part of that government. So I think instead of this, and of course we also have the debt management office in Abuja. So I think there should be the accountant general of the state should come up with correct figures so that we can, and then the debt management office in Abuja. For now, it's very difficult to take, to know what is actually happening. Adeleke is saying that, he met debt. Oyetola is saying that he left 14 billion. So who is actually saying the truth? But I think the new governor, he started on a very rough note. I felt that coming in, he should have taken time to study the books. Studying the books of a state is not something you do, in 24 hours. Take your time, be painstaking. Call your accountant general, hold a meeting with them, and then they will now come out with a figure. Then, people, but as it is, it's a continuation of political battle, that we are seeing in Real State.
Senator Ademola Adeleke, the new governor or the incumbent governor for Osun State, has not spent up to 2 months or 3 months in office. And this was the issues that the royal fathers raised, that how much time has it taken you to see all this? Because you've not even spent up to a month in office, to be very honest. So is this more like just a blackmail, or you're just raising dust where there is no dust? But let's look at it beyond Osun State. Osun State is just an instance, but this is something we've seen happen across board, especially when an opposition is taking over from another party. Should we always use this as a form of distraction or blackmail to distract the government, or perhaps anyone who is taking over, like we've said severally on this show, government is a continuum, and whatever liabilities or assets you're inheriting, you move forward and do the best you can do.
You see, politicians will always be, they are actors and actresses, in my opinion. It's just that sometimes they overact. And that's when you have dramas like this. My opinion, Osun State are playing to the gallery. The three of them, or the three camps, as I want to put it now, are just dramatizing. How do I mean? A good look at all the arguments, you realize that the three are saying the same thing. The three of them are actually saying the same thing. But what the problem is that while Adeleke is trying to pin it on Oyetola and excuse Aregbesola, Oyetola's people are eager to remind Adeleke that that's the man you should be holding. And Aregbesola on his own is trying to say, look, I paid off what I borrowed, except for long-term loan. Aregbesola did not borrow any money. Neither did Oyetola borrow money. The government of Osun State borrowed money. And that's not something we should be telling these grown-up men. Men. It is the government. Took loans. Oyetola was part of that administration. Adeleke was in the opposition at that time. He should know what is going on. This is a state he waited for years to govern. He started on a very terrible note. That was why he came out and made one allegation that Osun lost money under Oyetola because those mining gold were not made to pay. So he didn't have advisors and experts that would tell him that they don't pay to state governments, that's a federal function. He's showing a lot of signs that makes us fear that he may not have the readiness to actually govern that state, and it is not good. Talking about this money issue, Aregbesola borrowed money. From the records we've seen from all the camps, Aregbesola took loans for certain projects, some of them immediate, some of them long-term. Agreed with the those providing loan that other successive government will continue to service or pay. Oyetola inherited those loans, did his bit with it, and now Adeleke is in office. He should do just two things, in my opinion. Sit down, look at the loans, which I doubt if he had done in just 3-4 weeks. Thoroughly. What use were these monies put to? If he called those traditional rulers to tell them that we have discovered that this money was borrowed and we can't find what they have spent it on, this loan was taken, we can't find how it was spent, he will be saying something new. To come and tell traditional rulers who have been part and parcel of nearly all the administrations since the creation of the state that people borrowed money, they just look at you. We know government is borrowing money, and that's why you saw how the traditional ruler reacted. That you are not saying anything new, Mr. Governor. You are not complaining that you cannot find the money or you cannot find what they have been spent on. You are just telling us they borrowed money. We know governments borrow. You are still going to borrow money. Now, he should sit down and govern Osun State. He should look at his books, see what has been done right, see what has been done wrongly, and see how he can do something new and move on with Osun. Also, people expect more than bitterness.
And I hope, his campaign slogan, which is Imole Day, means a light is coming.
It should shed light on
things. It should not just eclipse so soon. But let's wrap up, gentlemen. The concern for many is the fact that a previous APC government is accusing a former APC government. Perhaps the internal bickerings between the Aregbesola camp and the Oyetola camp, it's rearing its ugly head again. What should the party be bothered, especially the Osun State chapter of the party?
I think the party should be bothered. Oyetola has ruled for 4 years. What people expect him to do is to account for the 4 years, not to be talking about the previous 8 years, because he took that mantle of leadership, knowing fully well there were challenges. And I think Adeleke, who has just come in, he should not be giving us the impression that, look, I'm going to fail after 4 years, but these are the reasons why I will fail. I mean, you know that every state has one depth or the other. But every day you keep on talking, oh, there are problems, so there are landmines. Look, face your, what's your own program?
You knew what you were getting.
Yes, what's your agenda?
You waited for 4 years.
You waited for 4 years, So,
okay. All right, gentlemen, it's been a wonderful time hanging out with you on the show today. Thank you for being a part of the program. journalist hangout on Sunday. Well, of course, we're back on Monday for the usual journalist hangout, which of course would kick off at 5 p.m. I must say a big thank you to Adewale Adeoye,
thank you,
a respected journalist, for joining us on the show, and Dario Dufowoko, of course, a public affairs analyst, who is also with us on the show today. Well, you can catch a repeat of this broadcast on by 11:30 tonight to watch all that we've analyzed on the show today. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I'm Emmanuel Akindubua. Thank you for being with us. God bless Nigeria, and bye for now.
The World Cup season is here again, and you can almost feel the excitement in the air. The best national teams in the world will be battling it out to determine who lives the coveted FIFA World Cup trophy come December 18th, 2022. Wondering what each team's shadow looks like, where the seat in the standings, who will be playing who, and what to expect. We've got you covered with all the previews and reviews you need to stay right on top of everything in Qatar on FIFA World Cup Fans Special Show. Coming live on TVC News YouTube daily for 30 minutes, 50 minutes preview before the match, and 15 minutes review post-match of the day. Keep up with all the actions happening in Qatar with expert match previews and reviews from our seasoned sports pundits. And guess what? You also stand a chance to win loads of exciting prizes when you predict correctly the outcome of the match of the day. To participate in FIFA World Cup